The Sun Belt dominated the MAC, winning 10 out of 13 games. It all started with Coastal Carolina's thrilling triple overtime victory over UMass. It's Locked On Sun Belt.
You are Locked On Sun Belt, your daily podcast on the Sun Belt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sun Belt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, trying to get this podcast recorded prior to tonight's festivities. And obviously, we can't get to all 13 games. Usually when the Sun Belt plays, there's 6 or 7 games, and sometimes we don't even get to all of them. So we'll try to get to about half in this episode. Do another half later on in the week. I still owe you Greg Beals from Marshall, baseball coach, and we got to do signing day. So we're a little bit behind, but we will catch up. All right. So dominated yesterday, the Sun Belt over the MAC. Marshall lost, ULM lost, and I can't think of the other team that lost off the top of my head. Only 3 games did not go the Sun Belt's way. And again, it all started with Coastal Carolina's thrilling triple overtime victory. We can talk about that a little bit. Georgia State did lose to Northern Illinois by 1 in a ball game that they probably should have won. All right, so it starts off with Coastal Carolina winning 94-91 in a ball game that Coastal Carolina had to come back from in the second half. They were down 32-21 at half. So they made a nice run in the second half, except they were up by 3. And I don't know how you guys feel about it. I don't want you shooting a three-pointer at the end of the ball game. I'm going to make you shoot free throws. Here's the only issue with that is when they did shoot the three-pointer, I believe there was like 13 seconds left. So there would have been plenty of time for Kajai Parker made it with 13 seconds left. So what I'm telling you, if there's a one-on-one, and Coastal Carolina was only going to have their 8th team foul, so it would have been a one-on-one for UMass. We'll presume, for the sake of argument, that they make both free throws. So there's 13 seconds left. You got to go make a couple of free throws to keep it a 3-point ball game. Okay, well, I can follow you again. Still only the 9th foul. I'm not allowing you to shoot a three-pointer. Having said that, we got one of the most exciting finishes this season. I still think the South Alabama ULM double overtime victory was, for South Alabama, the craziest Sun Belt game this year. This may be the one that involves the Sun Belt team the most because, again, Coastal Carolina and UMass played in triple overtime, and UMass ties it at the end of regulation to send it in to overtime. And then I believe Coastal Carolina had to also make a heave at the end of regular overtime, the first overtime, to make it a send it in double overtime. Kajai Parker makes one of 2 free throws, misses the second one, would have made it a 4-point ball game. 75-72. AJ Dantzler makes a wild 3-pointer, had to go off to the side because the defender was in front of him, ties it up at 75 as the buzzer sounds. All right. That wasn't the end of it. UMass ties it up at the end of double overtime. We go to triple overtime, and that's where Coastal Carolina hits the game winner right at the end of the ball game. Another 3-point shot. So we had a 3-point shot. We had 4 3-point shots, and that's just to tie it up or, in this case, win the ball game. That doesn't include all the shots that they made during overtime. All right. Let's see who it was. It was Joshua Beadle from the top of the key with 2 seconds left, makes a step back 3. That's after Marcus Banks hits a 23-footer, I believe a bank shot, as it turns out, to tie the ball game up at 91. And so Joshua Beadle gives Coastal Carolina the victory, 94-91. And, these are the kind of games. I don't know about UMass. I think UMass's record was all that good, actually, that are supposed to help. UMass, the same thing, 15-10. Coastal Carolina, well, now they're 15-10. Coastal Carolina was 15-10 when the game started. These are the kind of games that are supposed to help out net rankings, right? But that's just a fun basketball game, right? I mean, the Sun Belt is not going to end up with an at-large berth team, all right? Flat out. The winner of the conference tournament is going to the NCAA tournament. But how can you not like a 94-91 basketball game? It was all over social media, right? It made ESPN, right? Not all the games made ESPN, Sports Center. So that's a huge advantage for the Sun Belt, getting it off to a good start. And the Sun Belt MAC Challenge gets a little bit of juice, all right? All right, quickly, how about the Ragin Cajuns? They reel off another victory, okay? Now, all these teams are supposed to be lined up when they do make the schedule for these things. These things are not made way in advance. They're made a couple of weeks in advance. And so the Cajuns get Central Michigan. Central Michigan is 7-17 now, 0-12 on the road after this loss. Cajuns were down 42-38 at half. They win 85-80 over Central Michigan. And that all of a sudden is 4 wins in a row for the Cajuns and 5 out of 6, including their win over South Alabama. And that loss by South Alabama may, keep them out of a top spot in the Sun Belt. We'll see. They did lose to App State on the road, but they've since beaten Georgia State, Georgia Southern at home. They went to JMU, won by 3, and they just beat Central Michigan. They do get Coastal at home. That's big. They're at Old Dominion on Monday. So they only have, interestingly enough, by the calendar, right, the Cajuns only have, they're playing Thursday and Monday. They do not have a weekend game this week. Whereas South Alabama is going to be playing Thursday. I think is it Thursday? We'll get to that. All right. But they're playing Marshall on that Monday after they played on the weekend and after they played a week game. So the Cajuns are, they'll end up with something bad the next week where they get 3 ball games, Arkansas State and Texas State. All right. That's on, I guess, Thursday and on Saturday. But we'll see what the Cajuns can do. They welcome in Coastal. That's going to be a tough matchup for the Cajuns. Then they go to ODU, and you just never know what you're going to get out of Old Dominion. All right. Troy was impressive against Akron. The Zips are tough out. I think 19-5 coming into the ball game. We'll talk about that game and more after I tell you about FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here. And if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. And that's why following the Winter Games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on sports you care about most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. The drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast. Speed skating races decided by seconds. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening faceoff. Even niche events become must-watch when you're fully locked into the competition. The Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than when FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. And the Everydayer Club. Thank you for making Locked On Sunbelt your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live Sunbelt sports all day, every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Sunbelt with no interruptions, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to LockedOnSunbelt.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your teams every day. Still just Coke Zero. Not yet. For the game, for sure. All right. Troy got a big win against Akron. And that was the game on national TV. It was on ESPN2. And it was a good ball game. Troy really controlled the second half. They controlled most of the ball game. They were up 35-29 at halftime. They won by 10. I don't really think Akron got all that close. You did have Cooper Campbell with 25 points, 10 of 15 shooting, 5 of 9 from 3. Kobe finished just with 3 points, 1 of 4 field goals. Victor Valdez had actually a tough night from the floor, only had 7 points, but grabbed 6 rebounds, had 6 assists, 3 turnovers, but that's equaled out by his 4 steals. Thomas Dowd had 14 points. Theo Sang had 15 points, and they got a nice 15 points off of the bench. But Troy kind of really controlled this ball game. Tavari Johnson had a big ball game for Akron, 26 points, although just 1 of 6 shooting from 3. 11 out of 21 overall. Not a whole lot of free throw shooting in this one. You know, Troy just missed 2, and Akron was 9 out of 13. Not that big a deal. But Troy did a good job. Akron actually shot the ball better, but only shot 8 out of 30 from three-point land. Troy was 14 out of 27 from three-point land. That's how they won the basketball game. Rebounds were relatively even. Just felt like every time Akron got a little bit close in the second half, Troy hit a 3. Basically Campbell was the ones hitting the 3. And they just didn't, here you go. Akron pulls within 3. Shema Scott hits a 24-footer, 55-49. Cooper Campbell hits a 3, 29-footer, makes it 58-49. And then Troy called the timeout, all right? They just could not make a run. You know, they got it up to 9, 61-52. Akron was just never in this ball game. Thomas Dowd hits a 3-pointer, makes it 64-53. Now, Akron wouldn't go away. I will say that. Again, down 7, down 9, down 8, down 9, down 10. They did get it to 7, but that's with like 2:51 to go. I guess they got it down to 7 with a minute and a half to go. But they just could not, even when they did get it down to 7 with a minute and a half to go, Cooper Campbell hits a 3. All right. It makes it 77-67. The final score was 79-69. So that's a nice win by Troy. Remember, they had a little bit of a skid. Maybe they learned something about themselves, right? Trying to turn a negative into a positive. They lost to James Madison, who's just not a good basketball team this year, 73-64. And then they got blown out, embarrassed at home, by the way, by App State. App's pretty good, but you can't lose 66-44. Then they went on the road to beat Georgia State, and they took down a pretty good Akron basketball team. Akron is 19-5 overall. Even with that loss, they're 5-3 on the road. They're second in the MAC, right behind Miami of Ohio, whose only loss, apparently, Akron, is to Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio, despite their undefeated record at 24-0, is 11-0. Akron is 10-1. That tells you how good Akron is. We'll see when the net ratings. I don't think Warren Nolan came out. Maybe that's more updated instantaneously. But, I mean, Troy doesn't have any, hopes of, getting that at-large berth. I just wanted to see if it popped for basketball net ranking. Because they were like, yeah. They did go up 23 spots, okay? They're 115. Troy is a total of 115. So what is that? 138, right? That's what they were, but they're now 115 following that win over Akron. That's a nice bump. Like if you were in the 80s or the 70s and you move up 23, all of a sudden you're in the 50s and you're on the wrong side of the bubble, but maybe you get to the right side of the bubble. So Troy bounces back with a couple of nice victories and a nice win over Akron. They're as good as any mid-major out there. They are not an easy team to beat. All right, South Alabama taking advantage of a couple of players that were out for Buffalo. I think their leading scorer did not play. And South Alabama is going to be tough to beat anyways, right? All the time when they, if you haven't played against that zone. So their best player was out and the sixth man was out. So that's two big keys. Tough spot for Buffalo. However, this was never a basketball game. All right. South Alabama beats the Bulls 81-69, and it really was not that close. I believe at one point in time, it was 65-35. The Bulls led this ball game 3-0. All right. Let's find out what kind of run they went on, because they went on a nice run. South Alabama led 18-5. So that's an 18-2 run. Okay. Then they lead it 25-7. That's a 25-4 run. All right. Then they lead it 32-10. That's a 32-7 run. All right. And so they're up 22 with 6.5 minutes to go in the first half. They finished the first half up 40-24. Bulls made some shots late in the second half to make it a little bit respectable, but it really was all South Alabama. Really impressive. These numbers are going to be a little bit slanted because, Buffalo got hot at the end. And so overall, they shot 38%, but don't think they shot it that well. For the longest time, the Bulls had made a grand total of 4 2-pointers. They had only 4 2-pointers. They made 7 eventually, and they did make 17 3-pointers, but they were just shooting threes. In the first half, they attempted 1 free throw. They were 4-6 in the ballgame. Now, South Alabama missed some free throws, 15 out of 24. That's going to come back to haunt them. We can all see that coming. But they shot 53% from the floor. They shot 48% from 3, 10 out of 21. That's obviously going to help with their defensive performances. They did have a lot of turnovers. They don't usually get some turnovers. They got 10 turnovers versus the Bulls 14 turnovers. But they led it most of the way, and that's a nice job for South Alabama. South Alabama has a little bit of a daunting schedule coming up. All right. They are at Southern Miss on Thursday. All right. Then they're going to Arkansas State. Okay. Then they're going to go to Marshall on Monday. Can you win 2 out of those 3 games on the road? All right. That's a tough spot. All right. They should be favored against Southern Miss. Probably won't be favored against Arkansas State or Marshall. All right. That's a tough spot for South Alabama. All right. Can you win 2 of those 3 to have a shot at either a 1 or 2 seed, or certainly a 3 or 4 seed? You come back home, they're 7-4 in the Sun Belt. You come back home 7-7, you're probably not going to get a top 4 seed. You come back home 9-5, and you're in good shape, because the last 4 ball games, I believe, their last 4 ball games are all at home. Texas State, Troy, Monroe, Southern Miss, all at home, and outside of the Troy ball game, all very winnable. All right. Troy's winnable, but they should beat those other 3 teams. Troy is by far the toughest one in that. So if you can somehow win 2 out of 3 and then make it 3 out of 4, if not 4 out of 4, you'll have a shot, right? You got to win. Literally, you can't do worse than 5 out of 7, and probably need to win 6 out of 7 to get a top 2 seed. All right. Let's take a timeout. We had wishful thinking. We had high hopes. Miami was just a little bit too much for the Marshall Thundering Herd. We'll talk about that after I tell you about Wayfair and Indeed. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions, for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh, all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and budget. Reminders, and for the people who are new, if you can see the shelves, not the big shelves, those shelves back there, that's Wayfair. The desk that I'm working on, that's Wayfair. And let me tell you, if I can put them together, you can put it together. There's no doubt in my mind. Get organized, refresh, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now and shop all the things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And Indeed. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help your business move forward. And if you want candidates who match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to the people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. If I were hiring, I wouldn't just want someone who can help. I'd want someone with real experience who can jump right in. That's what I like about Indeed. You can get specific and target exactly what you need. Saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through the mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's the stat line that says it all. In the minute or so I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. All right, Dave Schultz, Lockdown Sunbelt, your teams every day. The biggest ball game of maybe the season in the Sunbelt prior to any conference tournament and a Power 5 matchup, Power 4 matchup, was going to be Marshall taking on Miami, the undefeated Miami Redhawks. All right, they are good, but they have just been sliding by. They're coming in 23-0, 9-0 on the road, but they have been sliding by just a little bit. All right. We mentioned the game against Buffalo at home. They beat them 105-102. They went at Kent State and won 107-101. They slipped past UMass 86-84. They did blow out Northern Illinois, but slipped past Buffalo again 73-71. So hoping for big things in a sold-out crowd at Marshall's Arena in Huntington, West Virginia. Started out okay, whereas Marshall was just down, I believe, 22-16. In fact, they got down 16-7. All right, but they got it back down to 22. I thought it was 16, 22-16, and then it fell out underneath their feet. They went on a huge run, 40-17. That's an 18-1 run over, was it even 10 minutes? Let's see here. 22-16 was at the 11:50 mark. So that's 12 minutes to go. 40-17. 40-17 is 4:18 to go. So it took about less than 8 minutes to go for, on that 18-1 run. So that's where the game ended. Miami of Ohio was up 49-31 at half. Marshall made a little bit of a run. All right. In the second half, got the big lead down to 10, but just ran out of gas. All right. Miami is undefeated for a reason. And Marshall was just not up to the task. I'm not sure there's a Sunbelt team that would be up for the task. I would think we'll see what Miami of Ohio could be. Let's see what their net ranking is, right? Can they get an actual legit seed to where, they're not facing some impossible task to win. Because again, they are 24-0. They are 50th. Isn't that ridiculous? They are 50th. So, is Miami not going to get in unless they win the conference tournament? 50 is bubble. To me, it's not in the 40s. It's in the 30s. You got to be mid-30s RPI net rankings to not be on the bubble. All right. All right, let's check out who had big ball games for Marshall. Let's see here. Noah Schutte had 23 points, 11-19 shooting, didn't attempt a three. Wyatt Fricks had a tough ball game, 13 points, 4-12 shooting, did grab 10 rebounds. And you did have Jalen Spear, who struggled a little bit, was in foul trouble, 4-13 from the floor, 2 of 8 from 3, just had 13 points. Marshall only shot at 40% from the floor, 28% from 3, and even just 59% from the free throw line. Whereas on the other side, Miami shot at 56% from the floor, 44% from 3, and 76% from the free throw line. So Marshall falls to 15-9 and 11-3 at home. Not the end of the world, obviously, because it doesn't hurt your Sun Belt standings, but it would have been so nice to get a nice win for the Sun Belt. Marshall over Marshall over Miami. It was not meant to be. App State with a nice win. Again, maybe scheduling situation. They get Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan, not that good. And App State needed to slip by. Kind of an App State game outside of that aberration against Troy, winning by 22. They usually play close ball games because they don't score a lot, but they play good defense. App State 65-60 over Eastern Michigan. Eastern Michigan is just 9-15 overall, 3-11 on the road. App State 17-9 and 10-3 at home. Alonzo Dodd had 23 points to lead App State. Now let's see where App State is. App State's second. They're a half a game behind Troy. All right, technically they would be tied. All right, they're one game behind in the loss column. All right, remember App State defeated Troy. Let's see what App State's schedule is. So they are at Georgia Southern, at James Madison. The way Georgia Southern's been playing, you would think that would be a win, but winning on the road is hard. And James Madison, those seem to be 2 winnable ball games. They get Marshall at home, which is going to be tough. Georgia Southern at home. All right, so that's twice in a week. And then you're at Texas State to wrap up the regular season schedule, and Texas State's, I believe, final game in the Sun Belt is home against App State. So we shall see. Can App State, do they have to win 4 out of those 5? Do they have to win all 5? Again, if you're App State and you're sitting in second place right now, you got to be thinking, we want a top 2 seed. Winning the regular season would be nice, but you just need a top 2 seed. That's what you're hoping for. All right. If you lose one of those games, all of a sudden you fall to, here's the other problem. You lose one, maybe more, then you're risking being out of the top 4. All right. Depending on where you're, Troy, for example, got to be hoping for a top 2 seed. They've been up there all year long. South Alabama has been right behind them, although they just moved up, right? Georgia State was second like 2 weeks ago. Now they're down. And South Alabama had moved up within, I guess, a game and a half or so, probably 1 game of Troy, because they don't have the tiebreaker against Troy. But now they fell back because of that loss on the road to App, as it turns out. All right, so App's got the tiebreaker over South Alabama and Troy. So they're in good shape in that respect. And so we'll see, because, again, we told you South Alabama has to win, 5 out of those 7 or 6 out of 7 to get up there. So App State's going to have to do that as well. All right, so what did we do? Like 6 ball games. We'll do the other half later on in the week, which means Tuesday. A few things. A, go Pats. All right. B, we'll see if we'll have a podcast. We may do the Greg Beals interview on a Tuesday because I'm having a root canal today. All right. We'll see how the mouth feels. I might be able to muddle through the ads all right, and can edit that in, we'll see how the mouth feels, all right, and how much medicine I'm on, and if everything goes as planned, all right. Otherwise, we'll be back Wednesday. It'll only be a day if I am down for the count, all right. So just a heads up, planning on, if I'm okay, I'll have a full podcast, and the Greg Beals interview can wait until Wednesday, is basically what I'm telling you. All right. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. I thought I was going to try to get to 3,000. Can we get to 2,900 before baseball season? I need like 13 more subscribers. Everybody knows somebody who likes the Sun Belt. I need 13 more subscribers. Please just get me to 2,900. I'll worry about 3,000 later. Can you believe baseball season is kicking off? First pitch is on Friday. Love it. All right. We'll be all over. Thanks again for tuning in. You've been watching Locked On Sun Belt, your teams every day. Have a great Monday, everybody. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday.